So the story of Joseph in the Old Testament is a really incredible story, but I'm just going to share one tiny piece of that story. This happens kind of midway through the story. Joseph is in prison. He's had a really tough go. You'll have to read the whole story to learn all about it. But while he's in prison, Pharaoh has this dream. And so Pharaoh dreams about 7 healthy cows and 7 starving cows. And then the starving cows come along and they eat up all the healthy cows. And then he wakes up. Then he has another dream about 7 healthy plants, and then 7 withered plants come along and they eat up all the healthy plants. And Pharaoh feels like this dream is special, but he can't get anyone to interpret it. And his cupbearer recommends that he ask this person named Joseph, because Joseph is kind of known for interpreting dreams. Joseph interpreted some things that happened to the cupbearer that were correct. So Pharaoh goes and gets Joseph out of prison and asks him to interpret his dream. And God gives Joseph the interpretation of Pharaoh's dream, which is that there's going to be 7 years of plenty in Egypt, lots of food, and that'll be followed by 7 years of famine in Egypt. So what does Joseph recommend to Pharaoh? Well, maybe not surprisingly, he recommends saving, and that is what this video is all about. Turns out that saving is very helpful in the story of Joseph, also very helpful for us too. So why is saving so important? Well, the first reason is that when things go wrong, and that's true for everyone, at some point in everyone's life, we'll have some unexpected financial situations. Things will go wrong. Having a safety net of savings to carry you through those difficult times is really, really important and helpful. So take a second to jot down a few in your notes. What might be the unexpected financial challenges that you might be saving up for? Maybe it's hard to think of because it's hard to imagine the unexpected. But we happen to be living through one of those things right now. Millions of people have lost their jobs due to the pandemic. And so if those people have a little safety net of savings, that will carry them through that difficult time. And it doesn't take away some of the challenges, but it does make it a little bit easier having a financial safety net. There's so many possibilities though, right? You could be injured, you could be forced out of work for a little while. Maybe you're traveling and have to do an emergency flight home because a family member passes away. There's so many unexpected things that can come up. Having a financial safety net, which is having a few savings there that you can tap into when things go wrong and things go unexpectedly, is so crucial. Because we cannot have a financially predictable life. We can make sure that we have backup plans, but we can't predict what will happen in life. Things will go wrong. They do for everyone at some point. The other reason we save is being more positive. We save for things that you care about. So think about maybe what are the things that you are saving to buy in the future. So jot down a few of those. Maybe you're saving for your education. That's probably the most pertinent thing that you're saving for in the future. Maybe you're saving for a new computer. Maybe you're saving for a down payment on a house someday if you're looking a little bit further ahead into the future. So think about a few of the things that you might be saving to buy in the future. Another reason why saving is important is just for our mental health. So you'll be a lot less anxious about your finances if you have that safety net, if you have some savings there. And hopefully that can also help you become more confident to be generous with your finances. You know that you're okay, you've got a good financial safety net, so you're able to give to others too. And lastly, your savings will grow with compound interest. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that. How you can make your savings actually start earning money for you. And you don't have to be sort of a financial guru to do that. You just need to know a tiny, tiny bit about how to save. So that's what this unit is about. Today we're going to look at 3 places where you can save money. And those are called registered savings accounts, the RESP, the TFSA, and the RRSP. And these are really great places to put money that you're saving depending on what scenario you're saving for. And that's what we're going to look at today. So the first one is the RESP. So just think about what you know about RESPs already. What do you think an RESP is for? Is it for maybe a major project or like a down payment on a house? Is it for post-secondary education? Is it for retirement, or is it for anything at all? Think about it for a second. Hopefully you said it was for education, because RESP actually stands for Registered Education Savings Plan. So when you're saving up for university or college, an RESP is the place to do it. when you're saving for your education in an RESP, it's actually a lot better than saving in a regular savings account. Right? You could just have a regular savings account with your bank and save up for university or college there. But if you put it in an RESP instead, you'll do much better. What do you think about why that's the case? See what you know already. Is it because in an RESP your savings go tax-free, whereas in a regular savings account you'd have to pay tax? Or in RESP, does the government give you a bonus 20% on every dollar you save up to $500 per year, or both of those, or neither of those? It is actually both of those. So RESPs are awesome. So the first thing that's great about an RESP is that in a regular savings account, when you earn a little bit of interest in your savings account, that interest gets taxed. So you gain some during interest during the year, but you have to pay some of it back in taxes at the end of the year. In an RESP, you don't have to. You can just keep earning interest and then more interest on that interest. Just a heads up, eventually you do have to pay tax on that interest, but you only have to pay a tax when you withdraw it, and you pay tax on the student's income. The student is probably in such a low tax bracket because you're not making a lot of income when you're a student that you might pay no tax at all, or at least very little tax. So essentially, it's going to be tax-free all the way through. The really huge thing about an RESP, though, I find, is the bonus 20%. So if you put in $2,500, then you'll actually get $500 for free from the government into your RESP, which is huge. It's a huge increase in your RESP. It makes it really, really worthwhile to save there over a regular savings account, where if you just put in $2,500, you just have $2,500. So I'll show you what that looks like. So on the left here, we've got an RESP. And we'll put in $2,500 per year. So that's the maximum you can put in per year in order to get the grants. You can put in more than that if you'd like into your RESP, but you don't get any more government grants. So that's why we're going to use that number. We'll compare that to saving the same amount, so still putting in $2,500 a year, but into a regular savings account. We'll assume that in your RESP, you're going to do some good investments, maybe not super high risk, but decent investments that are going to get you a 5% interest return, and that's going to be tax-free. In a regular savings account, your interest will be taxed, and we're going to assume that you pick just like you're not doing investments, you just pick like a regular savings account. Regular savings accounts have terrible interest rates. 1% is actually like pretty good for a regular bank savings account. Their interest rates are usually really low, especially these days. Okay, so let's look at the RESP first. So year one, you put in $2,500. So that's the blue part there. The light blue is what you put in. The orange part is what you gained from the government grant. So the government actually gives you an extra $500 just because you put money into your RESPs. It's like just free money for you there. So that means that suddenly your RESP is at $3,000. In the first year, you haven't even earned any interest yet. Year two, you're going to earn some interest on the initial amount you put in. So the dark blue is the interest you earned on the $2,500 you put in. So you can see, or including the $2,500, so you can see it grew a little bit with interest. That's the 5% interest in that year. The dark orange is the government grant, and it's grown a tiny bit from interest from last year. But then in your second year, you're going to put in $2,500 again, right? So that's the light blue in your second year. We put in another $2,500, and as soon as you put that in, you get an automatic government grant. So that's the orange on top there of the $500. So now we're up to $6,150 in our second year. In your third year, the $6,150 that was already there will grow with interest. And on top of that, you'll add another $2,500, and the government will give you an extra $500 grant just for putting that $2,500 in. So now you're already up to $9,458 in your RESP in just 3 years, so not very long. Let's compare that to if you put $2,500 per year into just a regular savings account. So in your first year, you put in $2,500, you would just have $2,500. After year two, your initial $2,500 will grow with interest, but it's taxed, so you don't get quite all of your interest, and the interest rate is pretty low there. You put in another $2,500, so now you're up to $5,018. Year three, that $5,018 will grow with interest, and you'll add another $2,500. So now you're up to $7,553. So in only 3 years of saving in either an RESP or a regular savings account, you've actually saved almost $2,000 more by putting the money in an RESP instead of a regular savings account. Makes a huge difference, especially if you think about you can be contributing to an RESP for many, many, many years over a child's life. Makes a really, really big difference in terms of what you can save for a child's education. And it turns out you can start really early. So parents can actually open an RESP for you as soon as you're born. It maybe seems crazy to think like, oh man, it's just a little baby. I can't think about them going to college or university yet. But that's actually the best time to open an RESP is right away when they're born because it has the most time in that case to grow with interest until they're actually ready to use the money for post-secondary education. So my daughter is not 2 yet. She has an RESP already. But if she decides not to use it, that's sort of one concern people have. Of course, you don't know if your 2-year-old will have any interest in going to college or university. They're way too small. But if my daughter decides she doesn't need that, she's not going to go that direction in life, that's actually okay. So it ends up basically working out that your RESP essentially turns into a regular savings account. So if you don't use it for education purposes, you do lose the government grants. And there's tax involved there, but it basically just means you don't lose the amount of money that you put in the first place. You don't lose your investments. You just it just becomes more like a regular savings account. You lose the bonuses that you get from the government. All right, TFSA. This is another place you can save. See what you know about a TFSA already. Would you use a TFSA for major projects, maybe like a down payment or a car or a renovation? Would you use a TFSA for saving for retirement? Or just saving for a rainy day, saving for things just going wrong in life, and maybe you just need some savings for something, or all of those. Hopefully, you said all of those, because that is true. So one of the great things about TFSA is that it's super flexible. The TFSA can be used for savings for anything you want. There's not restrictions like there is with the RESP, where it has to be for post-secondary education, otherwise you lose those government grants. But what is it then that makes the TFSA so much better than a regular savings account? Do you think, is it because when you put money into your TFSA, would you get a tax refund back when you file taxes? Is it because when you invest money in your TFSA, it will grow tax-free? Or when you withdraw money from your TFSA, it's going to be not taxed? There's actually 2 right answers here. So the money that you invest in your TFSA will grow tax-free. So this is very much like the RESP. Every year you'll get interest on what you've invested in your TFSA, and that interest will not be clawed back in taxes. So you won't have to pay tax on that interest as it grows. And then the really great part about TFSA is that when you take the money out at the end, it isn't taxed. So all of that interest that you've earned, you're not going to be taxed on it at all, like ever. You get that interest basically for free as untaxed money, which is great. So it's actually called a tax-free savings account. That's what TFSA stands for. And it's a really helpful way to earn interest that isn't going to be taxed. You don't get a tax refund back when you put money into your TFSA. So basically the money has already been taxed when it was taxed when you first earned it. An RRSP is another place that you might save. Let's see what you know already. Is an RRSP for saving for retirement, saving for the down payment on a house, saving for a car, or saving for a rainy day? Hopefully, you said at least A. It's actually B as well. So saving for retirement is kind of what you classically think of with an RRSP, and that's because it's called a registered retirement savings plan. That's really the idea of an RRSP, is to save up for your retirement. But there happens to be a nice little program called the Homebuyers Plan, where you can actually take out up to $25,000 from your RRSP to buy or to build a new house, but you have to pay it back to your RRSP within 15 years. It's kind of like an interest-free loan from yourself, essentially, to buy your house. So you're kind of like borrowing from yourself and then paying yourself back. So it's kind of a nice perk of the RRSP that you can actually use it towards a home as well. What is so great about an RRSP though? Is it that when you put money into your RRSP, you get a tax refund back? Is it that you don't pay tax on the interest earned in your RRSP as it grows? Or is it that when you withdraw money from your RRSP, it isn't taxed? Well, in this case, it's actually that you get a tax refund back with your RRSP. So essentially the idea with an RRSP is that tax is deferred. So instead of paying tax in the year that you're actually investing in the RRSP, you're going to be taxed on that money when you take it out once you're retired. And that has a real benefit to you because when you're in the middle of your career and you're earning more money, you're going to be in a higher tax bracket. So that means you pay a higher percentage of your income in taxes. When you're retired, you're probably going to be earning less, so you'll be in a lower tax bracket. So if you withdraw your money from your RSP when you're retired, you will pay less tax on the same money because you're in that lower tax bracket. Right. In general, all of these registered accounts, so RRSPs, TFSAs, and RRSPs, see what you think is true about them. So will your bank have sort of an interest rate that's just associated with each one of those accounts? So there's like certain interest rate for an RRSP, certain interest rate for TFSA, that kind of thing. Do you think you could use the funds that you put into your RRSP, your TFSA, and your RRSP to invest in mutual funds or stocks or bonds or GICs or kind of anything you want? And do you think maybe you could save as much as you possibly can in these accounts? Or do you think maybe all of those are true? Think about it for a second. So it's actually B here. So A is not true. This is kind of a common misconception. So there's not an interest rate associated with an RESP, a TFSA, or an RRSP. That's not how they work. Think about those accounts more like a basket. So the TFSA, say, is just a basket, and you can put, say, $6,000 in your TFSA, and you can just put that $6,000 in cash and just let it sit there and not grow any interest at all. That wouldn't be a great idea, but you could. Or you could put that $6,000 in your TFSA and invest it in a mutual fund or in a stock or in a bond or in a GIC or all kinds of different financial products. And to figure out like what those are and what the best one for you is, it's probably good to just ask your bank what would you recommend and let them advise you that way. C is also false. You actually can't save as much as possible in these accounts. So they're all really awesome savings accounts. They end up saving you a lot more money than just investing in a regular savings account. But that also means, of course, they have limits. You can't just throw $1 million into your TFSA. But it's a really good idea to put in as much as you possibly can right up to those limits because they're really good places to save money. So just to summarize that, an RESP, that's where you want to save for post-secondary education, and it grows tax-free. And when you do have a kid in the future, I'd recommend putting in the whole $2,500 per year. You can put in more than that, but at least the $2,500 is really good because that will get you that bonus grant from the government of $500, which is really significant, making your investment every year $3,000. There's a contribution limit, so you can't put in more than $50,000 per student, but that will give a really good start to anyone's education. TFSA is a fantastic one that I'd encourage you to open as soon as you can. So you have to be, I think, 18 before you can open that. But once you turn 18, I do recommend opening one because it's so flexible. You can save for anything you want. And it grows tax-free, and you don't have to pay taxes on all the interest you earn, which is awesome. There's limits to that. So every year, you'll get about $6,000 more of contribution room. So after you turn 18, you'll get $6,000 more every year. So right now, for someone like your parents who is over 18, they can contribute $69,500 in this year, in 2020, if they haven't invested anything in their TFSA before. And every year after this, they'll be able to invest another about $6,000. Some years it's just $5,500. They kind of mix it up every year. The RSP, also a really awesome thing to open. It's a really good way to save for your retirement. What's so nice about it is that you get this significant tax refund when you contribute to your RSP. When that happens, I would say a temptation can be to spend it all right away. I would encourage you to take that tax refund that you get and put it into your TFSA or an RESP, put it into some other savings account, because you know that tax is actually coming someday, right? Tax is not gone in your RRSP, it's just deferred. You'll be paying tax on that when you withdraw from your RRSP when you're actually retired. So a tricky question is, how much should you actually save? And the reality is that changes so much from one person to another and from one time in your life to another. There's tons and tons of factors that determine how much you can save and how much you should save. One sort of general recommendation is about 20% of your income. But I'd say right now, your overhead costs are very low, right? You're hopefully not paying rent. Probably your parents are letting you live there for free. Probably you're not paying for your groceries. Most of your essentials right now are covered by your family. So this is a really awesome time in your life to save way more than 20% of your income. If you can save as much as possible, maybe even 70, 80% of your income, that would be an awesome thing to do right now. The reason for that is that very soon, in just a couple years, you'll be switching to a situation where you'll have a lot of expenses. You'll be paying for tuition, probably, place to live, groceries, all of that sort of thing. And your income will also be low because you can't work full time when you're a student. Um, so it's really important to be saving for that. So if you save a lot right now, you might be saving much less than 20% when you're a student, and that's okay. But if you save a lot more than 20% now, you'll be more ready for that. So it really depends on where you're at in your life, how much percentage of your income you want to save. But just a few ideas that I find have really helped me save. The first is automated saving is awesome. I find my life gets super busy and I just forget about saving. So I've got my bank account set up that automatically money transfers from my checking account into my savings accounts. So I don't have to think about it. It just happens right away. I don't even see the money. It just goes into my saving account and I don't have to worry about it. It's really, really easy to set up, so I highly recommend doing that. The other thing that I've kind of mentioned briefly already is that your tax refund when it comes back. So you'll get a tax refund every time you invest in your RSP. But you also get tax refunds for all kinds of things. You get tax refunds for your student tuition credits, for your donations, and that tax refund can be huge. It can be thousands of dollars. And when you suddenly see thousands of dollars show up in your account in April or May, you might think, oh wow, like I could spend this. I could like do a really big vacation or something. I really encourage you don't use any of your tax refund for expenses if you can, because you usually don't need it, right? You've been working all year with a budget that didn't rely on any of the money in your tax refund. Right? You were doing fine. So don't take that tax refund and put it towards more expenses. Take all of that tax refund and put it into either savings or donations because it's really money that you didn't need in the first place. Often, not always true, but if you can do that, that's a really great idea. On a similar vein, there's a great thing called the Canada Child Benefit. So this will happen if you have a baby someday. You get the Canada Child Benefit. It's just like a few $100s every month for your baby. And I would really encourage you to take that and just direct it straight into your RESP for that child. So then you don't even have to budget extra money for the RESP. The Canada Child Benefit can sort of fill that up for you, which is really helpful. The most important thing I found that's really helped me save is just making a good budget and keeping expenses low. So if your expenses are low, then you'll have enough left over to save and make saving a priority item for you. That helps a lot.